Hello, I am so very pleased to welcome you to the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute's webinar, Making Positive Impact series. Today, we'll be focusing on how future-oriented personal care and household products companies are tapping into the Cradle to Cradle certified framework to guide product and packaging innovation to advance clean products and the circular economy. My name is Monica Becker, and I am the Director for Beauty, Personal Care, Household Products at the Institute, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. So today I'm joined by panelists from 3 leading companies that are part of our Cradle to Cradle certified community and are working diligently to create products that are safe, circular, and responsibly made. Umaimah Sharwani, Vice President, Operations Bravo Sierra, John Mascari, Co-founder and COO, Blueland, Dylan Beach, Sustainability Manager from GOJO. The webinar today will have 3 parts. We will start with short panel presentations followed by a guided panel discussion, and finally, we'll take questions from the audience. We welcome your questions during the webinar and ask that you please submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Indicate please who your question is for, whether it's for John or Dylan or Umaimah or the Institute or perhaps all of us, and I will either pose your questions to the panelists or we will answer them in writing. Before I turn it over to our first panelist, I'd like to provide a little bit of context for the webinar on key trends and some background on Cradle to Cradle Certified. I'm sure you are all well aware we live in a highly uncircular world. The organization Circular Economy calculated and recently reported, as it does every year in its Circularity Gap report, that the world today is only 8.6% circular. And actually, this is down from 9% last year. But the good news is that consumers are becoming more ethically minded and want to make a difference through their actions. And they are demanding that brands and retailers build their businesses with conscience. But consumers want credible, meaning information on the sustainability attributes of products and the performance of the companies that make them. As an example, in a recent survey by McKinsey, more than half of US consumers reported that they are highly concerned about the environmental impact of packaging. They say they are willing to pay more and buy more sustainably packaged products if more were available and were better labeled. These trends and these motivations are highly aligned with the work of the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute. We are an independent and global nonprofit organization founded in 2010 with a vision of a world where safe materials and products are designed and manufactured in a prosperous, circular economy to maximize health and well-being for people and planet. We provide a comprehensive framework that offers a global definition for safe, circular, and responsibly made products. The underlying standard of Cradle to Cradle certified is science-based and multi-attribute, and a measure for innovative products made with the circular economy in mind. We were very excited to launch last week on March 16th, version 4 of our standard, which reflects significant advances in our understanding of what it takes to make products with a positive impact. The new standard was developed through a multi-stakeholder process involving many technical subject matter experts and 2 public comment periods. The 5 categories of Cradle to Cradle certified are designed to ensure materials are safe for humans and the environment, enable a circular economy through product and process design, generate clean energy and protect the climate, safeguard air, water, and soil resources, and embrace safe, fair, and equitable labor practices that advance human rights and strong communities. The standard has different achievement levels in order to offer a pathway for continual improvement, for measurable progress, for innovation: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, with platinum being the highest achievement level. The criteria for the 5 categories are structured based on the achievement level. I'm just going to quickly touch on 2 out of the 5 categories of the assessment framework. Material health addresses the safety of ingredients of a formulation or packaging material. This is critical to ensuring the quality of materials so that the materials are suitable for cycling in the circular economy. we do not want to cycle hazardous chemicals. To assess chemicals for material health, first we take an inventory of the ingredients in the product, then screen the ingredients against our restricted substances list, which is a list of known hazardous chemicals. But unlike most certifications, we take a next and important step to assess the ingredients that are in the product using our material health assessment methodology, which is the leading global assessment methodology on human and environmental hazard and exposure. It has 21 hazard endpoints and is a deep toxicological review. Screening against the RSL is really a great first step, but definitely not sufficient to ensure safety because it is not possible to have a comprehensive RSL. The next step, if necessary, is to optimize the chemistry. During the optimization process, we verify that alternatives are safe for human and environmental health. And ingredients need to be identified and assessed down to 100 parts per million, that's 0.01%. And at a minimum must not have carcinogens, mutagens, reproductive toxicants, persistent or bioaccumulative chemicals. And at the platinum level, the chemicals further up in the supply chain are identified and assessed as well. And just a little bit about the circularity category. Circularity is about closing material cycles. We address three key aspects of product and packaging circularity: circular sourcing, design, and circular systems. Circular sourcing addresses recycled and responsibly sourced renewable content in the product. Circular design addresses the design of a product or packaging with cycling in mind. And for a cleaning product or a cosmetic product or personal care product, the formulation has to be readily biodegradable since the product ultimately will be released to the environment. And for packaging, there are robust circularity requirements, but with flexibility to choose recycling, composting, refill, or light weighting strategies. Circular systems address making circularity information publicly available and providing consumers with cycling instructions. Okay, and just last slide from me on packaging specifically. The standard covers products and packaging, and there are three pathways for packaging for cosmetic, personal care, household, and professional cleaning products. And I just want to touch on two of these strategies or pathways, the first one and the third one that you see here in the slide. So in pathway one, if just the product is being certified or the formulation in the bottle, there are requirements in material health and circularity for the packaging as well. And in the third pathway, the packaging can actually be assessed on its own, and in that case would have to be assessed in all 5 categories of the standard, in a similar fashion to how a product would be assessed. Some companies start with the product and then move into the packaging, or start with doing both. And you'll be hearing a little bit about that in the presentations that are to come. So let me stop and turn it over to our first speaker. Umaimah, why don't you get us started?
Great, thank you so much. Hi everyone, VP of Ops here at Bravo Sierra. You can go to the next slide. Bravo Sierra is a men's care company, and we launched in 2019, and we are actually the first men's care company that has been built with and for the US military, and for those individuals that lead active lifestyles. We develop all of our products with clean ingredients and formulas that meet the physical pressures of both on the field and the daily life. You can go to the next slide, please. Yep, so all of our products are produced in the United States, and we actually work with a community called Battalion. We have over 2,000 active duty members or veterans that partner with us to create these products, all the way from concept to ideation, to development of the product, to launch, and then post-launch as well. We'll engage with these service members or veterans and actually send out samples of our products as we are developing them to get their feedback on the product texture, the usability, the scent, really all details of the formula itself, as well as the packaging in which it will come in. We'll utilize their feedback and continue to iterate on that product until we all feel comfortable with launching the final product. So here you can see a slide overview of all of our personal care products. This is through the end of 2020. We have about 12 launches scheduled for 2021. As I mentioned earlier, we are focused on clean ingredients and sustainability. And all in concepting this brand and these products, we wanted to ensure that we used aluminum for the packaging, for example. Our body wipes are created with biodegradable material, and all of our products go through this cradle to cradle process. So some are either certified or still going through that certification process. At Bravo Sierra, we firmly believe that a product is never done, which means that even if it's live right now in customers' hands and they're using it, we're still looking at that packaging, we're still looking at that formula to say, how can we continue to improve it, both from the formula perspective, but also clean ingredient sustainability and where we're actually sourcing and creating the product itself. As an example, our deodorant that you can see front and center is one of our best sellers. Its canister is actually tooled and created in China, and it's one of the products that we've had a pretty challenging time sourcing in the US, but we are working with our manufacturing facility and partners to create a tool available in the US so that we can start producing that in the United States as well. So we have this philosophy of continuously looking at our products and improving them when we can and where we can. Continuing on that note, and just a little bit more about the sustainability aspect, we firmly believe as a brand that sustainable products and products that have clean ingredients that are good for you and good for the environment shouldn't be at a high price point. So we really do have products that are affordable and accessible by all, either through our direct consumer website, Bravo Sierra, or we're also sold at retailers like Target and Urban Outfitters. So I'll talk a little bit about the cradle to cradle development process and how we work with the institution. As we are thinking about what products to develop, we'll do a pretty thorough research as to what facility and manufacturing partner we want to work with. This can be anywhere from 3 to 9 different vendors, and we'll want to make sure that these folks are in line with our values and goals of sustainability, which not only means the type of technology they have for formulas, but also how open they are to working with us on the packaging and sustainability aspect itself. So from the get-go, as we're giving our vendors formula briefs, we're also letting them know what our objectives are with Cradle to Cradle and ensuring that they feel pretty comfortable with the process, the timeline, and the resources that will be required of it. Throughout the development process, we'll also work really closely with MBDC and include them on all parts of the product. So that includes the bill of materials of the packaging, of the formula. If we have any additional raw materials that are being sourced from other suppliers, we'll provide all of this information to MBDC and our partners to ensure that we are looking at every single raw material from the right lens and ensuring that it is in fact clean and it is coming from a reliable raw material supplier. When we move into the phase of actually producing the item and going into a line trial or production, again, we'll involve the team at Cradle to Cradle, and they'll come on site. This is, of course, pre-COVID. Come on site, tour the facility, meet the folks, and have a chance to actually speak with a quality manager at that facility to learn a little bit more about how that facility is run, what the tools they have to ensure that their facility is sustainable, but moreover, what they're hoping to achieve down the road. So again, including that team member in that entire process from start to beginning, so that they actually feel, a part of the process of launching a new product up until the launch and then post-launch. So all of our products, if you look at our packaging on the back, there is a Cradle to Cradle logo that will share with the customer what certification it is, either it's bronze, silver, or gold. And then in addition to that, on all of our product pages on our website, we also have a block that shows not only what certification level it is, but we also list out where all of our products have been developed, not just the formula, but where the packaging was sourced from. We believe it's really important to be transparent to our customers. So even when a product is bronze, for example, we're letting our customers know that here are the ways that we're trying to improve this product and then working on that internally. Additionally, if a part of our product is sourced from outside of the US, then we're also listing that on our website and on our packaging, saying that it's created with globally sourced materials, but we are actively looking for US suppliers. Here's an overview of all of our products lined up from what has been certified to what is in progress. So on the top, you'll see our hair, body wash and shave, body spray, shaving foam, and dry shampoo. All four of these products actually include a really unique propellant that we've worked with our factory in New Jersey to create. Most propellants are created with isobutane, butane that is harmful for the environment. We actually worked closely with our factory and from the first point of development had said that we wanted to utilize a different propellant with a solstice propellant, which is better for the environment. And to put it into context, it equates to, I think, reducing the amount of cars annually by 33 million. So that's just another example of how we partner with our factories to make sustainable products. So the aluminum cans are certified. Our solid cleanser here in the middle is also Cradle to Cradle certified gold, is also EWG certified, and our aluminum tubes as well. On the bottom, you'll see some products that are still in progress. So our hand cream, deodorant, and body wipes are all active products. You know, they have been live since 2019, but as I mentioned before, no product is ever complete, and we're continuously looking at all aspects of these products to continuously improve the Cradle to Cradle certification, both with the formula and the packaging vendor itself.
Okay, thank you, Umaimah. That's terrific, and we'll be circling back to you with questions. And John, let's turn the floor to you.
Great, thanks. I'm John, co-founder and COO of Blueland. We are a refillable cleaning products company on a mission to eliminate single-use plastics. So as part of that, we sell beautiful, reusable cleaning and hand soap vessels and bottles, along with our innovative refill tablets. Just a little bit about how we got started. I mean, my co-founder, Sarah, and I started working on Blueland a number of years ago, actually, but we've only had products on the market for just under 2 years. Our 2-year anniversary is actually Earth Day, so next month. And when we came to working on Blueland, you know, we were already actually working together at the time, and for different reasons, we were both, you know, disheartened and angry and alarmed by the plastic pollution problem. My co-founder Sarah at the time, new mom, she was really horrified to learn about microplastics and how they were working their way back into our food and our drinking water. For me, living in Colorado, I get to spend a lot of time in the great outdoors. I've always been a lover of the natural world, and from a business perspective, just a vehement opposer of inefficiencies and a firm believer that businesses and distorted incentives have done a lot, unfortunately, to create some of the environmental crises that we're dealing with, and therefore businesses are the ones who have a big responsibility to fix it. But also just driven by a belief that, and a desire to try to build a business that could really show industries and consumers alike that there is real opportunity to rethink the way consumer products are designed and created and sold. You know, rethink them to prioritize the environment without sacrificing from a customer experience perspective. Next slide, Monica. Thanks. So of all of the things that we're dealing with from an environmental perspective, you know, why plastics? For us, probably preaching to the choir with this group, but at the time when we first started working on Blueland, a lot of the plastic facts and just how ubiquitous plastic is in the environment was just really coming to light in terms of digestible type of statistics that were helping us internalize how this is playing a part in our everyday lives now. So, you know, eating a credit card worth of plastic a week through microplastics working their way back into our food supply and drinking supply. Now we're inhaling plastic in the air. You know, more plastic in the oceans than fish by 2050. And we just felt like there absolutely had to be a better way. But the challenge that we were both facing, my co-founder and I, is there was just so many products in our own households that we were using on an everyday basis that we didn't really see an alternative for, an alternative that was plastic free. So looking around our houses and looking at all of the products that we were interacting with on a daily basis that came in plastic and we didn't have a real suitable alternative for, one of the types of products that really stood out to us both were our cleaning supplies. Everyday, multi-surface cleaner, glass and mirror cleaner, bathroom cleaner, hand soap products that we were all interacting with on a near daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day, but that came in big, bulky plastic packaging. And the big aha moment for us was when we looked at the ingredients of some of our most frequently used products and saw that the first ingredient listed on the ingredients panel was often water. And for myself, having come from a food and beverage company background, I know how to read ingredients labels, and to see that water was the first ingredient, we thought, okay, what's that about, and does it have to be a liquid format? So come to find out that a lot of these products that we were using that were in this bulky plastic packaging, that water was not just a small part of the formulation, but could be 90–95% of the formulation. And it was that water that was requiring the big, bulky plastic packaging, which obviously has major implications for the planet from a plastic perspective, but also just the weight of that from a shipping perspective and the implications that have for carbon emissions. So next slide, please. So with that in mind, we thought, okay, this can be done differently. If we dehydrate these regularly used products, taking out that 90–95% water and shrinking it down to a dry tablet about the size of a quarter, that has all of the active chemistry that you would typically find in a traditional cleaner, but can be reactivated with water at home. So the way that our system works is that we sell you a beautiful forever bottle, hopefully the last cleaning bottle that you ever have to buy. And we sell that to you once, and then you can fill up the bottle just with tap water at home, and then drop in our refill tablet, a 5-gram tablet, for example, and it immediately starts to effervesce and mix with the water, and voila, very quickly you have a solution that acts like a traditional liquid, 20+ ounces of cleaner that has the same shelf life characteristics as a product that you would normally buy in the stores. And instead of shipping this product around in big, bulky, heavy plastic packaging, filled with water, we're able to ship our refill tablets in paper-based, compostable, recyclable packaging. And we're able to do it pretty cheaply just by putting it in the mail through, for example, USPS. Yeah, so when in launching these products, it wasn't enough for us to think, okay, putting them into these new formats, that would be enough for the consumer to make this switch, because as both my co-founder and I, being consumers in the eco space for years, thought that when most consumers think about products that are more eco, they're often thinking, the product is probably more expensive, less efficacious, and less convenient. And that was a concept that we really wanted to turn on its head, knowing that the biggest impact we're going to be able to drive is by meeting the most consumers that we possibly can with our product. So all of our products go through rigorous third-party testing for efficacy, and we're proud to say that across the board, we perform as well or better than both conventional and green brands. Incredibly cost-effective. So our refill tablets, for example, are only $2. So oftentimes matching or beating conventional, big CPG price points, and convenient. Like I was saying with the tablet, you just fill it up with water from the tap at home and drop in the tablet. There's no mixing or stirring. It just immediately starts to effervesce. So very little lift from the customer perspective. And all of these attributes were really, really important to us in thinking about not only how do we build this business to be more eco, but how do we also build the business in a way that sets a true example for both businesses and consumers, to think about rethinking industry and rethinking, tried and true products, and realizing that they can be done very differently. And this slide just illustrates, from a space saving component, tremendous efficiencies with our 5-gram tablet versus a traditional product. Of course, in your home, that's a big space saver, but also when you think about the logistics in an increasingly e-commerce world of shipping these products around, our small tablets just go a long way in terms of barely filling up a truck versus their traditional equivalent liquid that often, fill up a semi truck really quickly. So the implications from a carbon emissions perspective are also pretty major here. And these are such novel products that we do pursue a pretty robust patent strategy. So, just 2 years old on the market, just about, and have about 40 patents pending already. And we've done this with cleaning sprays and hand soap. And then if you could go to the next slide. So first we launched with cleaning sprays and hand soap, that model that I just talked about. And that was our first year in 2019. And then in 2020, we launched in the dish and laundry categories. And our specific focus in these categories was to move away from polyvinyl alcohol or PVA packed single dose laundry and dish packs. So if you think about single dose laundry and dish packs, both are very, very fast growing categories in the US. They're uber convenient, but they're packaged individually in a petroleum based plastic that, while it disappears, to your eye when you're washing your clothes or washing your dishes, ultimately it is still a petroleum based plastic that washes through your wastewater, and high percentages of it ultimately end up back in our environment. And when they do so, they behave just as the normal plastic would, binding to other things in the environment, becoming toxic, and eventually working its way back into our food and water supplies. So for Blueland, in 2020, we were so pleased to launch naked laundry and dish tablets so that consumers could still enjoy that convenience of a single dose pack, but do so without having to think about washing plastic down their drains and ultimately back into their environment. Next slide. Certifications. So we believe certifications are so important. Just philosophically, it's not just important for us to do the work, but we also feel like having strong partnerships from a certification perspective is critical, both for the consumer education piece and also the standards that sets for other businesses. So a real strong pillar of our certification strategy has been Cradle to Cradle. We're proud that all of our chemistries have a platinum material health, and that several of our vessels do too, and those that don't, we're currently in the process of getting certified. And we really work with Cradle to Cradle and their partner MBDC from the inception of all of our products, to set really rigorous standards around the chemistries that we're willing to use and the packaging that we're willing to use, always setting the bar at wanting to achieve platinum material health. And over the course of the last year, we've also been going through the process with Cradle to Cradle of full certification across all of the different products. At a product level, we also maintain certifications with EPA Safer Choice, USDA BioPreferred, EWG, which is not on here, and Leaping Bunny. But also at a company level, we are a certified B Corp and we are climate neutral. These two certifications, super important for us, and Cradle to Cradle, the first full certification, falls into this same category, where it's not enough just to have very clean chemistries, just to have very clean and appropriate packaging, but truly to run a business in a sustainable way that takes into account all stakeholders, community that we're operating in, team, manufacturers, all of that. So the company level certifications are very near and dear to who we are as a business. Next slide, please. Yeah, and in our short period of being on the market, we're so pleased that we've gotten a lot of press, both in publications, but also with celebrities, all unpaid, all organic. And the reason why I wanted to put this in here is because when we started this business and we were trying to go out and fundraise, we met with a lot of folks who at the time just didn't believe that you could build a business and that is truly successful, that has eco at its core. Heard a lot of feedback that people have good intentions, but ultimately don't pay for eco, and this is a really tough space to get into. So we really, in our minds, took a leap of faith when we launched this business, and truly the best part about building it has been seeing how mainstream it is quickly becoming, and how so many consumers are just so ready to be purchasing and forming relationships with products and companies that are truly sustainable, and are truly thoughtful from top to bottom in terms of the companies we're building. So seeing some of these celebrities just find Blueland and share it with their followers just gives us a lot of faith about the mainstreaming of some of these principles, from a product perspective that we hold so dear. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John. That's wonderful. And just a reminder, we do have some questions coming into the Q&A box. If anything comes to mind, put those in, and some of them are getting answered in writing, and some I'll be posing to the panelists. So Dylan, why don't you take us to the next presentation?
Sure, thanks. Hi, I'm Dylan Beach. I'm a sustainability manager at GOJO Industries. For those of you who are unfamiliar with GOJO, you may have encountered us through typically one of two routes, either Purell hand sanitizer, which has been somewhat important during this pandemic, or also through our heavy duty hand cleaners. A lot of people remember their dad working on a car in the shop, or in the garage, and using the GOJO heavy duty hand cleaner to clean up afterwards. So a lot of people say that one too. So, but we have a full range of products, surfaces, wipes, and but Purell is we're quite known for Purell. And next slide. And so we are a purpose-driven family enterprise, and we think of our purpose as being to save lives and making life better through well-being solutions. And so that's really drives everything that we do. Of how do we advance public health through and provide well-being for people. And you can see our founders on the left, that's Jerry and Goldie Lippman, and then the current family owners. Well, the second from the left is Marcella Kamfer-Rolnick, and she's our current owner, kind of a third generation owner, and then our CEO on the far right, Carrie Jaros, who just took over in January of 2020, right when the pandemic was starting to come upon us. It's a fun time to take over as CEO. All right, next slide. So GOJO was founded on a safer way to clean hands. And if you look at our history, so we're a 75-year-old company this year. And so in 1946, towards the end of World War II, that's really when the company was founded. But for the couple of years prior, Goldie Lippman was actually a supervisor in a rubber factory in Akron, Ohio, that had been converted for the war effort, and they were making life rafts, rubber life rafts. And the women that were working on these assembly lines would get carbon black and tar all over their hands, and what the men would use to take off that carbon black and tar was heavy-duty solvents like kerosene and benzene, super toxic, and would just slough off the skin of their hands. So the women were like, "This is awful. It's terrible." And so Jerry took it upon himself to say, I'm gonna come up with a safer way to clean hands to solve this problem. And so that's really the founding of that mentality of a safer way to do that, and also kind of portion controlled dispensing. And so we just developed the first kind of wall-mounted dispensing systems as well as part of that solution. And so kind of grew up with auto mechanic shops after World War II, but that's really that founding story. And it's kind of stuck with us. Next slide. Where our standards now are products need to be safe, effective, and good for you. You have to have efficacy. kind of as John was talking a lot about, you need to have efficacy. But we don't want to put products out there that aren't safe. And increasingly, as more and more science becomes available, we learn more and more about what safe ingredients are. And especially as chemistry gets more and more advanced, we have more access to efficacious products or chemistries that are safe as well. And so as a science-based company, we really try to find what does science tell us, what does science tell us are the safest and most sustainable ingredients. All right, next. So one of the things that we really like about Cradle to Cradle is and I lifted this graphic from MBDC, which is one of the assessing bodies for Cradle to Cradle, but was also sort of the birthplace, the birthing firm of Cradle to Cradle, if you will. And so it's really about a process of continuous improvement. And it's not just about getting rid of, screening out bad things like bad chemistry and other things, but it's also about understanding what's in there, what you have put in there, and how good are those things that you put in there, the chemicals. And is there an opportunity to actually improve? Even if you're using safe chemistry, is there an opportunity to use safer chemistry? So it's with our formulators. So we had a 2020, and it's 2021 now. So this goal is over. But we had a 2020 goal to double the percent of product sales that come from third-party certified products. And when we started the goal in 2015, we were at about 34% of our portfolio of sales was certified, which for a 75-year-old company, we think that was pretty good already. And it was leading our kind of B2B industry space because GOJO is actually a predominantly B2B driven company. You sell a lot into hospitals and airports and the like, soaps and sanitizers and other products. But so by 2020, we were trying to double that to get to about 68% or more of our product sales being certified. And so for our formulation team, our chemists, they had a goal of every time you touch a product, whether you're a formula, whether you are creating a new formula or whether you're touching an existing formula to do something else with it, you need to get it certified, period. If it doesn't get a certification, you can't move forward with the project. And the requirements were multi-attribute certifications too. So it couldn't be just USDA bio-based, which is a great certification to have because it advances, the use of bio-based materials, but that's a single attribute. So we wanted to have certifications that cover a variety of attributes like biodegradability requirements, health and safety requirements for the ingredients, packaging requirements, bio-based requirements. So all our formulators were tasked with advancing the sustainability of our portfolio and using certifications as a benchmark to do that. But we really like Cradle to Cradle. If you go to the next slide. So everyone's talking about circular economy, right? That's a big buzzword and nobody knows what it means, but everybody knows what it means a little bit. And so there are three main parts, and I lifted this graphic from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I like to steal a lot of other people's work because they do it better than I do, and I can talk about it and give them credit. It's nice. But there are three major tenets to the circular economy. And the first really is that is to design out waste and pollution. And so you can't, as Monica was talking about earlier, we can start to keep materials in use, but if there are toxic chemicals or chemicals of concern in those materials that are being circulated, then you're going to be increasingly circulating toxic and hazardous materials, which is not a good thing. A circular economy is a good thing, but only if it's a safe circular economy. And that's why the material health category of the Cradle to Cradle certification we view as is the most robust way to get third-party kind of review and support for choosing safe ingredients and materials. And so as the other aspects of the circular economy are also super important. Regenerate natural systems, that comes into play by sourcing certified bio-based materials, and making sure you're doing this in carbon neutral ways or reduced lower carbon manufacturing. keeping products and materials in use, ensuring you're using materials that are recyclable and actually getting recycled, and or designing for reuse, like Blueland is doing. So all these things are really important, but what we've really focused on here is making sure we're using safe ingredients. All right, so on our next slide. So in 2020, we had over 350 SKUs, and that number is growing, become certified under Cradle to Cradle. And so we had about 12 formulas go through the application process for hand sanitizers, and 2 formulas for soaps of ours. And all of those achieved gold overall with platinum material health ratings. And so when you get that platinum rating, it doesn't mean you're necessarily done, because there's still room to optimize even with platinum. But it does tell you that you've chosen safe materials according to what science would tell us is safe. And so with us, especially when we've heard a lot about kind of, for lack of a better word, junk or unsafe hand sanitizers being advanced in the marketplace during the pandemic, ones that have been recalled by the FDA for either violating quality, like over-the-counter drug manufacturing processes, or having unsafe ingredients such as 1-propanol or methanol being used. So it's important to have these third-party validations of a commitment to using safe materials and ingredients. Because like now more than ever, we need to have safe products in the marketplace. Yeah. So I think on the last slide, just we report on our progress in our sustainability report, and that's a picture of our old report. Yeah, that's okay. But so we report every year, and we'll have our 2020 progress, which you can learn about the progress against our sustainability goals. That report will come out sometime this year, and we'll be announcing our next set of goals. Because as I mentioned, our past goals expired at the end of last year, and so we're going to be launching our new set of goals, which we're really excited about, and kind of continuing an ambitious and ever growing, more ambitious commitment to sustainability as we move forward.
Great, thank you, Dylan. Thanks all of you for really fantastic presentations, and let's delve into some questions. So one of the things that I love about this panel is we have 2 companies that I would say are sort of younger companies, been around for a few years, couple of years, and we have a 75-year-old company in GOJO. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to maybe have you, Umaimah, start up with this question and tell us a little bit about how starting up with a framework like Cradle to Cradle shaped your company. What are some of the opportunities and challenges? Then John, I'll turn to you, and then Dylan, ask you from a 75-year-old company perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, we went live in 2019, and as you can imagine, for a small company, that also means just a smaller team and not having as much time or resources. So we really have partnered with your partner facility of MBDC to truly, like, at step 1, understand the scope as to what it actually means to go into Cradle to Cradle and certify. Even at the launch of Bravo Sierra and pre-launch, I remember we were sort of thinking, like, is this formula, is it the packaging? And there's been so much emphasis on the clean ingredients and formula itself that it sort of was creating this like siloed part of the product as opposed to looking at it from a whole. So the framework, both from Cradle to Cradle and MBDC, has really provided us with that foundation as to how we want to look at a product as one cohesive unit instead of looking at it from 2 different parts. I think that's step 1. Step 2 is really understanding, from the framework of Cradle to Cradle, how can we vet out different vendors that we want to speak to? And that means not only folks who will have really innovative and new formulas for us to launch with, but it also means who is also committed to this. How transparent are they with us or with Cradle to Cradle on what their facilities, their water processes and processes are, and what are they hoping to improve. And you'd be surprised to hear how many, not because they aren't committed to it, but just again, from a resource and time perspective, don't want to spend that resources in providing all of those informations to us. So that's been really helpful in just choosing who we partner with and how we move forward as a company, and who we want those partnerships to be with.
Perfect, thank you. John, why don't you add your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, very, very similar experience to Umaimah. Yeah, I mean, we similarly young company and really have been working with MBDC, I say from like day negative 365, because we, before Blueland was Blueland, started working with MBDC and the Cradle to Cradle framework to really set parameters for ourselves in terms of packaging and chemistries that we would use. So something that I think is pretty unique to Blueland, at least in our space, is that we do all of our formulations in-house. So all of our products are products and formulas that we have invented internally, which means that it is kind of a blank canvas in some ways in terms of building the products from the ground up and being able to do so in partnership with MBDC from the perspective of what chemistries and at what levels are appropriate for us. The packaging, same thing. When we came into this space, we really, first of our kind type of product. So we really were looking all over the world for packaging that would meet our unique criteria of being able to be dry as a formula, but still having some shelf life requirements that might be a little bit different than, say, food, because of the way that, our chemistries would react with a package versus like the way a bagel would or something. So we just, from everything, it was such a blank canvas for us in coming up with, every aspect of our product, that working with MBDC and Cradle to Cradle from the beginning really set a lot of great parameters. Other than that, we also, so there's the certification piece, but we also vet, every aspect of our entire supply chain with the help of MBDC, keeping Cradle to Cradle in mind. So for us, not just formulas and packaging, but the inserts we use, any level of material that enters our supply chain is looked at MBDC, which has been a real help for us. And I think one anecdote I'll share is just, we often find that through this process, we are asking our suppliers questions that they seem like they've never been asked before. And oftentimes discovering things in the products because of Cradle to Cradle that I'm not always sure said suppliers knew were there. And oftentimes it's led to us having to leave that supplier, start from scratch and go find another material because, we had gone a long way with a supplier who just didn't know like these materials were there. Luckily, through the Cradle to Cradle and MBDC process, we caught it before it went to market. But I've been grateful for the MBDC and Cradle to Cradle partnership throughout because of the way that helps us really discover like every little thing that could show up in a piece of our packaging or chemistry that I think would be quite hard to find otherwise.
Perfect, great. And Dylan, from your 75-year-old perspective.
Yeah, first I'm going to say, so you guys are the reason that Victoria is being so slow to return my calls. Work with you guys too. So yeah, we've also been working with MBDC because they have such deep knowledge on the standard. So it's especially being like kind of going through it for the first time. I think it was good to have a firm that was really deeply steeped in it. Yeah, so we were certifying products that were already in existence, and like Purell, like we invented the first Purell in like the late 80s, and but Purell Advanced I think came out in 2010 or so, and so so working with a product that was already like had kind of a place in the market and associations by consumers and others. that's challenging if you have to change something. So for example, we've been using the cradle to cradle process and the assessment process to have really increasing dialogue with our fragrance houses. For those of you who aren't familiar with fragrance, it's kind of like, it has been historically like a black box. It's just, our fragrance mixtures are proprietary secret, you can't know anything about it. You can't know any of the chemicals in it. And that's sort of starting to loosen up a bit as more transparency happens and more disclosure occurs about the individual ingredients. But, where we were with our relationship with our fragrance houses, it was, we'll start to tell you, like, the palette of ingredients we use on your behalf, but not at what products, not to which products and whatever. So we were trying to figure out what exactly is in a product. It's not helpful when you have suppliers that aren't sharing all the information you need. But we were used, our cradle to cradle assessor as a third party to receive information on our behalf. And so a challenge that we encountered was a couple of our fragrances, we found that there were one or two fragrance components that were problematic chemicals. And so we were like, well, now we know, we got to get rid of those. And so trying to maintain the same scent profile while removing those chemicals in order to be able to achieve platinum, but more importantly, to be providing products that are safe for people, which is, our purpose really. So, so having to work through that process, which really drew out the kind of the timeline of our certification of, we're going to go and make sure we do user testing and make sure people, find scent parity between the new fragrance and before we roll this out. And so we had to do that a couple of times. But we were better for it, right? Because that's part of the continuous improvement pathway that cradle to cradle kind of puts you through, which is really exciting. So I think that's kind of a challenge of trying to certify an already established product is what happens when if you have to change something, if you find something that you didn't know about, or because as you start asking questions to suppliers, you start finding out things you didn't expect to find, or it's kind of like, opening a hole in a wall in an old house and you find a bunch of stuff in the wall that you didn't. Now your project is more expensive.
That's a good metaphor. Good. All right. Thank you. No, those are great answers. And you actually touched upon another question that I had about engaging with your suppliers. So that's really fantastic. Thank you. So let's now turn to a few questions that we have in the Q&A. So let me pose this first to Umaimah and then to John. So there's a question about barriers of entry from a business perspective as you compete with other brands in the sustainable space and breaking into sustainable markets. So what kind of barriers of entry have you faced with your sustainable companies and your sustainable brands?
Yeah, I can go first. I think truthfully, it's two things: time and resources. I just listening to Dylan even talk about having 300 products that are Cradle to Cradle certified. I'm in awe, and just thinking about how big that team is and the time that it must take. I think, it's and this is where the philosophy of a product is never complete is important to remember, where it is really about taking each step at a time and doing as much as you can every stop along the way, but knowing that there's still so much more to go. But definitely time and resources. We're a small team. The operations team is myself and two other people. And so we're handling not only supply chain of new products, but also looking at the sustainability, the cradle to cradle, the inventory management. So it's really about how can we manage our time in a way that we can prioritize this, which because it is such a big part of our brand, we are able to do. But I hope as we grow, we have more time and we have more resources, and resources could be either time or it could actually be money as well, of just, engaging with folks and bringing on people to work with on the certification process.
Great. Okay, John, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, in our case, I think some things are changing a bit now, hopefully, because Blueland has in our industry. I mean, and hopefully because Blueland has had some kind of an impact. But, you know, for us, when we were getting started, lots of barriers to entry from the perspective that we were entering one of the, I guess, the biggest and most established industries on the planet that has set up a global, you know, supply chain and infrastructure around products designed in one format, liquid bottled products. So when we first started, I mean, from the very beginning, figuring out how to build a supply chain in such an established industry, but a supply chain that has never been executed in this way before, was a huge barrier for us. For example, if you think about it, I mean, most companies that have cleaning products, or most manufacturers that manufacture cleaning products, don't have tableting equipment. And if you do have tableting equipment, you're probably in like the supplement space or something, and therefore don't have the capacity to bring cleaning products into your facilities. So we had to cobble all of that together and really look all over the country for different pieces of equipment and bring that in, which is very hard on a startup budget, time constrained things, but just trying to be as scrappy as we possibly could there, and also just really refusing to compromise. So we, you know, even when we got the tableting equipment, so much of the, for example, infrastructure to package a tablet is still largely plastic. So machinery that was designed to be efficient with plastic. And when we wanted to put paper-based materials on these same pieces of equipment, that was like regarded as just not even possible. It'll slow down equipment. There's no equipment that will work with this kind of packaging. And there too, we just had to get scrappy about cobbling certain things together and not take the easier path, which would have been wrapping them in plastic and then saying, you know, there's always that other argument that someone trying to sell you a product might say, which is, oh, well, you know, you can talk about how it's significantly less plastic. You're still putting less plastic into the world because you're doing these plastic wrappers and not the big bottles, but just refusing to make compromises there. So yeah, lots of barriers to entry when it came to setting up the supply chain, but you know, very, very worth it when trying to do something different. And then in terms of setting up barriers, because of all of the innovation that the team has gone into, you know, we have been pretty aggressive about pursuing a strong patent strategy across all products, because cobbling all of these things together and making that investment is something that, you know, ultimately have to protect that investment as best as you can.
Great, thank you. Great insights. Okay, so we are getting close to the hour, but let me ask you all a question, just maybe in one sentence or so. If you think about companies either, you know, starting up or more mature companies, if you had to give them one piece of advice on starting up from the perspective of your Cradle to Cradle certified journey, what would be your advice? And Umaimah, do you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. Honestly, take it one step at a time. You know, it's not about going from 0 to 100, and it's definitely not about having all of your products certified at the same time. It's truly taking each product, dissecting it, and taking it one step at a time to understand, you know, how you can improve that current formula or package. And then also knowing that it is a long road, and again, something is better than nothing. And so I think the philosophy of a product is never complete, and that you're always continuously going to be improving it is really helpful. And then I think this is not one sentence, but I would also say just to, you know, sort of educate yourself and learn from folks who have done it already. Like already I'm thinking about the questions I want to ask Dylan and John after this panel. So, you know, utilize your network and resources of folks who have done it. And it's not just MBTC, excuse me, and the Cradle to Cradle institution, but also, you know, other companies, other startups, other consultants who have that experience, who can sort of guide you and help you along the way.
Great. So one step at a time and leverage the community. I love that. Fantastic. Dylan, what would be your piece of advice?
I would advise, especially for larger companies, older companies, to not be afraid of the complexity. Just work to break it down. The Cradle to Cradle standard for because it's applicable to all products and has as many categories and all, as robust as it is, it's a long standard. But don't be afraid of the complexity.
Excellent. Okay, John.
I agree with everything that's been said, and we'll just add being super transparent with suppliers and partners as soon as you can about your ambitions with Cradle to Cradle and other certifications. I think like bringing your suppliers and partners into the information fold there early is super important, just to set expectations and get everyone on the same page about ambitious environmental goals.
Fantastic. Great advice. All right. So with that, I would like to thank our terrific panelists for the great presentations and great insights and answers to the questions. I hope that everybody participating in this webinar is as impressed with the three of you as I am. The great work that you're doing at Bravo Sierra, Blueland, and GOJO. You really, truly embody the spirit and practice of cradle to cradle design, with an understanding that how we design and make products today shapes the world that we will inhabit tomorrow. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone that joined us, and we'll see you next time. And in the meantime, stay well. Take care. Bye-bye.